Good morning, Songs of Devotion. This morning's devotion is entitled Covenant Keeping God. Throughout the Bible, God made covenants with his children. A covenant of God is the sovereign dispensing of his grace, and the security attached to the covenant arises in the action of God. It is God who makes the covenant, ensures that it continues, remains in force, or ceases to be. It is true that God lays down the obligations to the covenant. However, God does not negotiate with anyone respecting his covenant. God imposes his requirements, and the responsibilities of keeping these obligations is laid upon us. When God gave the law to Moses, he did not ask Moses what he thought about the law and what action Moses might be able to give. Moses was expected to obey it with no conditions attached. It is the fact that God will fulfill his promises that lies behind the covenant. If there are obligations and they are met, then God will keep his promise. If the obligations are not met, then God will still keep his promise relating to the outcome of not keeping his covenant. Think about Noahic covenant in Genesis 6 verse 18. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy son's wife with thee. Noah was obedient to this covenant and indeed built an ark, hoping that as God spoke, so shall it be. What would happen if Noah did not obey the promise? Think about Abrahamic covenant. It was reaffirmed to Isaac and then to Jacob. It is noteworthy that God accomplished his promises amid the sins of the patriarchs. But we should not forget how the consequences of sins were also suffered by the patriarchs, and how the suffering was far beyond the intermediate sin itself. Think about how Jacob worked for 7 years to have Rachel, only to be deceived and for him to top up another 7 years of unplanned labor in order for him to marry Rachel. Think about Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel 7 verse 12 to 17. It is fulfilled in Jesus Christ, who rules on the throne of David and reigns over the house of Jacob forever. Luke 1 verse 31 to 33. The reign of Jesus as the Davidic king has a direct relevance for us Gentiles today. God's covenants with Noah, Abraham, Moses, and David ought to increase the joy of faith, because in all of them, the main point is that God exerts all his omnipotence and all his omniscience to do good to his people. And we are that people if we follow Christ in the obedience of faith. The most practical truth any Christian can know is that God is all-powerful, all-wise, and all for us. The deep emotional assurance is that even though we are sinners, God's attention is focused on us with omnipotence, mercy, to give us peace. It can be concluded that it is because of God's love, faithfulness, and will upon our lives that he makes covenants with us. Not only that we may recognize his faithfulness and realize the need to worship and praise him, but also to fulfill the promises of his will on his creation, that we may one day soon rejoice with him in his glory when he comes back. Thank you for listening. Stay blessed.